I'm going to try something different here. Do more of a vlogging style. Try to hold the camera out. And I'll have to switch hands quite a bit. Trying to go with a lightweight lens. Put on my RF16 f2.8. Running it at f7.1 and kicking the shutter speed up to 120, well, 1/250th of a second. And I'm just running 30 frames per second in the HD. Try to save some file space. What I'm wanting to do is talk about my, let's see, be my third vehicle. Maybe that's not right. Maybe it's my fourth vehicle. But in this case, it's an '83 Ford Ranger diesel. What happened, I was working full time, 1 year out of college. I've probably been working for another year or so. And a boss comes up to me, hey, when are you going to buy a vehicle? And, well, he's talking about a new vehicle. Of course, I'd have to get a loan. And I said, well, when interest rates get down to 10%, this is in the early 80s, and we had 18% interest and all that kind of stuff. And Ford did come down to 10% interest rates. And so I got serious about it. This is an '83. Diesels just became the rage in pickups, Ford pickups. In the F-250, they offered the 6.9 International Harvester diesel. And I worked at a International Harvester tractor dealership at the time, so that was kind of intriguing. But of course, I didn't need a F-250. But they came out with a Ranger diesel, and that sounds interesting. So I kind of looked into them, went down to Hillsboro Ford and test drove one. And I know when I was test driving it, I wanted to see what kind of power they had. And here we're going along about 50 mile an hour test driving it, and I downshifted it to third. Well, they weren't made to be downshifted at 50 mile an hour into third. They just didn't have that kind of RPM. But I ended up going up to Cheney Ford and getting one from them. They had one that had about 8,000 miles on it, and it was kind of a loaner vehicle. They'd loan out when they were working on vehicles. And I traded in my 76 Cobra 2 for that. I remember my loan was, I think, $6,500. You could do the math to figure out whether this is right. But on a 4-year loan, payments were $164 a month on $6,500. Yeah, $164 a month. I think the vehicle is a little over $10,000, and I got like $2,500 for my Cobra 2, and I had a couple thousand saved or something like that. But even at that low of loan rate, $164 a month, I still computed it out. And working full-time as a mechanic, I thought, well, could I actually live on my own? I was living with my parents at the time, and a 1-bedroom apartment in Wichita would run maybe $300 some a month at that time. With just that only loan, no, I could not live on my own. I was making perhaps $5 an hour, and that was probably a couple dollars more per hour than minimum wage. And so things were tight back then too. I actually thought about downgrading to a GM diesel. My other two brothers are running GM diesel, and at that time you could pick them up pretty cheap. But the problem with those, I think one lasted 100,000 miles, other one maybe 150 or 60. They just weren't that great of diesels for sure. But I bought that thing, loved it, got 30 miles per gallon. But I did have some trouble. I found out went on my first trip out west with it a few months after I bought it, and it was in the mountains of Colorado, and it got down to about 30. This is like in August or so. Well, I say August. Yeah, it probably was. Yeah, it wasn't too soon after that I met my future wife. But got down to 30 and I couldn't hardly start that thing. Oh. I found out later the glow plugs were all shot on it, were all open. And I got them replaced under warranty. They kind of balked at that. I thought I had a full warranty on that thing. And I took it to another dealership in the big town of Wichita. And I don't know. There were some problems. I don't know if it actually wasn't in warranty like I thought. I got the glow plugs replaced. That fixed it. That thing would start within a couple turns of the engine down to maybe 5 degrees. Really an excellent starter in cold weather. Yeah, and after that, I burned out about on an average maybe one glow plug per year, maybe not quite that many. But if it wouldn't start good, first thing, check the glow plugs, and one would be open. That'd be enough to affect the starting. It's really a nice day out here. Probably the sky showing up is more or less white. I thought it might rain on me here. Not too much wind, so I thought I'd better go for a walk. Not using any electronic stabilization. It's only from the gimbal here. Figure I can get by with that on the gimbal and the wide angle. Thought it'd work better for the selfie here. But I really loved that Ranger. I did have a few problems with it later. I remember the AC bracket broke on it once. Had kind of a pot metal bracket, developed a crack. And I found out from the factory one of the mounting bolts was too long, so it didn't keep the bracket tight against the motor. Oh, another thing, it came out when we were only talking 55 mile an hour speed limits, and that thing would do okay, 55 mile an hour. But when they changed the speed limits to, say 65 on a highway I had to run every day, it starts buzzing pretty good. And that was another thing. The 83 had a round filter housing mounted to the inner fender there, but the 84 model had a plastic silencer mounted to the air cleaner to help muffle some of the intake noise. And I tried to retrofit something similar to mine. I found out some of the big block Fords of the early 70s had like a oil filter housing, like an FL1A filter, oil filter, mounted to the air cleaner. And I assumed it was a resonant silencer. I tried to stick that on. It didn't make any difference at all. Yeah, so the thing was buzzy. It had 59 horsepower. I think one time I got it up to 83 miles an hour. So it didn't like speed, and it was buzzing like crazy at that speed. I had to put a clutch disc in it once, so eventually the clutch wore enough where I was afraid it would slip. So we just replaced the disc and got by. After a while, the rust started getting to the thing. They had a oil tube running from the front of the motor to the oil filter housing adapter on the side of the engine, and it started developing a leak. And so at home, I took that apart once, and it was a mess. You know, that diesel oil got all over me. I wore a t-shirt when I did it. I ended up throwing that t-shirt away because it was so black stained. I took that steel tube off and ran it into work and brazed it where it had rusted. And it held for another few years. Had to replace exhaust manifold gasket once. Then one of the exhaust studs broke. I went to drill it out. I went into the water jacket of the head. But that was easily sealed with just some sealer on the exhaust manifold stud. Stuff like that. Radiator had to be fixed once in a while. Loved heater cores. I used a kind of a round, real thick oil or air filter. You know, while there, you could actually get them Whitlock Auto Supply, which is kind of a warehouse style high performance automotive supply. I'm going to take a rest here. Yeah, you could get that air filter at Whitlock Auto Supply, and it was actually manufactured by Fram. That's who made the original one, because it looked identical to it. And you could actually, just a few years after this pickup came out, you could get that at that auto supply house. So make use of that. From the dealer, they were kind of expensive. On that trip I went out west, that was early on, and since I worked at an international harvester dealer, got in the habit of using their #1 engine oil, and it came in 2 grades at that time, 10 weight and 30 weight. So in the summer what you'd do is run 30 weight, and as the winter approached, you'd start diluting that with some 10 weight. Well, I was starting to run low on oil. You know, I was going to the Yellowstone Park up there in Wyoming, so I started looking for international harvester dealers just to get some oil, because we had run out at work or something, and I thought I might need a little bit for the trip. Ended up finding one in Wyoming somewhere. It's probably on a middle of the week type deal. So stopped in there and got I don't know how big of containers they came in at the time, if that was in gallon containers. Later on I purchased all that in 5-gallon bulk, and that worked pretty good. Well, they also came out with 1540 oil, which is just something new at the time. And so I ran that 1540 for the rest of its life. Oh, a train's going through. I don't know if you can hear that in the video, but I would have got married in '85 We took that thing on a honeymoon to Eureka Springs in Branson, Missouri. Threw her suitcases in the back and went. So it kind of had sentimental value to me. Hated to get rid of it. Through the years, you adjust the valves once in a while. Change the oil filter, fuel filter. Not the only maintenance really. Some brake work. It had twin I-beams up front, like all the Fords did at the time. These were only made out of stamped steel. Later on they went to a forged steel. But that never gave me any trouble, except the alignment. It had a little bit of positive camber built into it. It means the front wheels were tilted out a little bit at the top, and going in the mountains, that wore the outside edge of those tires pretty good. Although I think they were just glass belted radials. They weren't even steel belted radials. But I got that fixed under warranty. They put some new camber adjustments in it. Gave it just a slight negative. And that fixed the tire wear. And I got 80,000 miles out of a set of Michelins after that. But fuel mileage did drop off with time. By the end of its life, it was getting down to 26 miles per gallon. Oh, and when they came out with low sulfur fuel, the fuel pump developed a little bit of seepage. So we ended up, once in a while, you'd put a quart of tranny fluid in the diesel fuel, and that might tend to swell the seals just enough to keep it from leaking so bad. So it really needed a reseal on the injection pump. That would have been kind of costly. Coming home from work one day, I just got past Walton, and just speeding up from 45 mile an hour up to 65. All of a sudden, bang, something let go in the engine. And I lost a cylinder. I went ahead and limped it the 5 miles home. I could keep it running and I could restart it as long as it didn't get cold outside. I really have a feeling that a valve got dropped and probably damaged the cylinder. I never did even remove the valve cover to find out. It might have been just a valve spring, but I kind of doubt it. I think the old engine was built heavy duty enough. They even had like lash caps on the valves, extra little wear items between the rocker arm and the valve. Oh, look at that. Saw a sprayer outfit go through here yesterday. Has them wide tracks. It's pretty marshy right here. So anyway, I let that Ranger sit for I don't know, a month maybe. Finally advertised it on eBay, sold it that way. They sent out a wrecker from Wichita to pick it up, and then is waiting transport. Some guy from like New Jersey bought it, was going to restore it. I never did hear from him again. So all in all, it was a good pickup for the money. I think I did replace the starter once. Nothing major to the engine. I thought I got my money's worth out of it. At that time, the 83 Rangers would just had carbureted engines on them. Weren't very good. I know before I bought this Ranger, west of Elbing, a guy was driving a Ranger. I had all kinds of writing on the windows complaining about it. And so I was able to, I don't know, flash my lights at him and got him to stop. So I talked to him a little bit. I think one of the complaints was the engine. You know, it just had, I think, a 2-liter as a standard gas engine. And just was pretty gutless. And he complained about things like the windows wouldn't stay in the track when you rolled them up. Now, granted, if you had the blower on the heater system going and going down the road 55 mile an hour and tried to roll the windows up, the front of the window would maybe come out of the track. Now, if you had bought the higher end XLT, it would have had little vent windows in front and an extra channel to guide the window. Mine was just an XL. It did not have the vent windows, so it was just one piece of glass on the door, and it kind of exhibited that problem, but I just lived with it. It wasn't that big a deal to me. Stuff he was complaining about was nitpicky, really. He just really bought the wrong vehicle, probably. For the time, you could tell they were a cheap vehicle. Door panels, extremely light duty. For some reason, the headliner fell down within 3 years. Tried to replace it with vinyl, and that didn't work so good. So I finally just bought another headliner, a new one, and it lasted for 20 years without problem. Shouldn't even tell this story, but there's 2 times out in the farm we get in the habit on a manual tranny vehicle just to stick them in gear and never put the emergency brake on. There was a time in Wichita, ran into a Quick Trip and started looking at some magazines or something in there, and it's on a slope towards a busy highway. All of a sudden my Ranger started moving on its own. I ran out the door. Another guy was yakking on the phone, just watching it. He didn't care, but another guy helped me, and we got it stopped before it hit the highway. So that kind of learned your lesson. I better start using the emergency brake. You know, we always kind of taught that maybe using an emergency brake would result in sticking and cause you grief. But probably not using them causes much grief. And another time, I had that thing parked in my shed, and before I redid it here, I kind of had a slope on the north end into the lean-to part. And my oldest boy, he was probably around 3, jumped in it, popped it out of gear, and it started rolling forward, rolled down that slope, ran into a pole on the lean-to, and it bent the bumper into the fender. I was able just to pull it out. Just lived with the fender a little bit there, but it sure scared him. And that was another reason, better start using an emergency brake again. But that pole, it kind of pushed it out of the roof area there. But I found out when I was doing my shed redo here about 3 years ago, that particular pole, I don't think ever went into the ground. Yes, I just used what they had, and I went ahead and replaced that pole because some of the purlins, I don't know if you call them purlins, is on the wall there. Some of those boards had to be replaced. So I replaced that round pole with a 6x6 square pole and got it set in the ground properly. And that helped stabilize the roof quite a bit. So I don't blame it on my son at all. It's kind of but it wasn't that big a deal. Pickup was getting old by then, or older. And as far as that 83 Ranger diesel, there's 3 or 4 others in the area that I worked on as a mechanic for a few years. Now in 85, they came out with a better, more powerful turbocharged version that had a Mitsubishi engine, I believe. But those are extremely rare. I even, before I got to Ranger, I even drove a 4x4 Chevy Love that would have had a Isuzu 4-cylinder. And it had probably a 4-wheel drive and a 5-speed. I just didn't care for the body. This Ranger was kind of touted as a kind of a mid-size, and it really was compared to the ultra small foreign pickups at the time. I could actually pull my pop-up tent camper with the Ranger, at least in Kansas here. I'd never tried it in the mountains, but we pulled it to Canopolis Lake once. We go about 50 mile an hour with it. The problem with this Ranger is it liked to smoke a lot. When you would start giving it the fuel, it would put soot on the body, probably on my camper to a certain extent. Early on I did try some propane injection. There was a company sold at the local co-op called Red Rooster Booster. It was a propane injection setup. So I got one of them, had to go down to Wichita, North Broadway, and got one, hooked it up. Now I made sure that my glow plugs would not be activated when I would inject propane. I had it set up on a toggle switch on the throttle. Hit about 3/4 throttle, it would open a solenoid there for the propane. Then it had a little injector there at the air cleaner. But I used the glow plug circuit, I believe, to power some of that up, or bypassed it or something there, so the two couldn't happen at the same time. We kind of did some experiments. He had a Minneapolis Moline, I want to say G6, I don't know if that's right. It was a 6-cylinder diesel engine. Found out you can idle that thing on propane, no problem. Just get it going on diesel. You can turn on the propane, and then it sounds just like a regular engine until you start giving it more propane, and then it would start knocking. So propane kind of intrigued us. I think it worked better if you had a turbo on the engine. They claimed the propane would use up the excess oxygen that was available. The problem was really on these engines, without a turbo, there was no excess oxygen. And it did help power. I did some timed 0 to 60 runs. Probably gave about 10% power, about that much better fuel economy if I would run it cruising down the road. I didn't do it very long. Just ran a grill, 20-pound cylinder and back. Get too much hassle, probably being illegal too, messing with that. So I finally removed it. It looks like the wheat's coming in nice here. Supposed to get some rain today or tomorrow. Sure hope so. It's pretty dry. So I probably drove that thing for 20 some years and 250,000 miles. I don't think that's too bad. I just got tired of working on it. Diesel's always so messy. especially that thing without a turbo. Oil got contaminated pretty fast. If you worked on it, you'd just leave your hands black. My 22 Maverick totally beats it though. You know, in real dollars, it's cheaper. And I got an XLT model. You know, electric seats, windows, heated steering wheel, heated seats. It's got a hitch and all that. Yeah, my 22 Maverick is such a better vehicle. You know, it gets 30 to 40 mile per gallon being a hybrid. And you can cruise 80 mile an hour, no problem. Can pull anything below 2,000 pounds just fine. Matter of fact, I made a trip down to southwest Missouri with it here 3 years ago to get the wood for my shed. It was probably maybe over 2,000 pounds total, and it worked just fine. That 83 Ranger would never do that. Yeah, it is a beautiful day. I'm a little warm now though. I got a long sleeve shirt on and no wind. At least I gotta walk in. Well, here's the literature I had. You know, try to get you to buy this Ranger, which 83 was the first year too. And it says here, Ranger power includes a thrifty new 2.2 liter diesel option. The modern fuel efficient engine is optional with 4x2 models, quick heating, glow plugs, and an afterglow that continues to assist warm up until the coolant reaches 86 degrees. In addition, there's a manual cold start control. Oh yeah, I forgot about that, which controls and advances the injection pump. So when it's cold, you'd push down the accelerator and then pull this knob out. It's like a choke knob. You pull it and then turn it, and it would advance the timing a little bit. Payload package number 2. It can handle loads up to 1,600 pounds. I don't think they recommend you pull anything with it though. They show the diesel there. Yeah, another thing my pickup did not have was cruise control. And on a long trip, your foot would get so heavy from pushing down the accelerator pedal, you'd have to move your left foot over there and use it after a while.